So the Jennifer Crumbley trial is officially, over. At least closing arguments have been made. Day 7. Now it goes. Now we see what is going to happen, whether she is going to be found guilty of involuntary manslaughter or not. I got to tell you, this whole situation is just a mess. This case is obviously unprecedented in the history of the United States. And I got a lot of thoughts and feelings on it. I'm Collier Landry. Let's get into it.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in...
When I was 12 years old, my testimony sent my father to prison for murdering my mother. I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, albeit with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Mover Nation, if you have or have not been following the Jennifer Crumbley situation, it is a doozy. And today, final arguments and then closing arguments were made in her involuntary manslaughter trial. Now, if you do not know, her husband, James Crumbley, is going to be put on the have his own trial, which begins in March. But this was the case of Ethan Crumbley's mother, who is facing 15 years in prison for an involuntary manslaughter charge. And I got to tell you, the whole time that this trial has been going on, it has felt like somebody defending a bad parent. I have weighed in on this a couple of times this week. What trial? Celtic Moon says, what trial? Holy cow. Hello. Yes, this live is just starting. We had another live earlier. Anyways, so Jennifer Crumbley, it is over. It is in the hands of deliberations, at least. Hi. Thank you so much for the Martin Luther King quote and sticker on Black History Month. What an apropos thing. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Martin Luther King. Tina Leffman, thank you so much for the super sticker. That's a great quote. And since it is the start of Black History Month, what a way to start the first live of February. Well, the second live of February, the first day of lives of February, February 2nd. So welcome. Thank you so much for getting the party started, Tina Leffman. Okay. So, Jennifer Crumbley, the mother of Ethan Crumbley, who is the young man who was, who pled guilty to the mass casualty event that occurred at Oxford High School on November the 30th, 2021. 4 students were killed and 7 others were injured severely due to his actions. It is a horrible, horrific circumstance. And this came to my attention initially because I felt like, why are we charging parents for the behavior of their child? And doing a little digging, obviously, Jennifer Crumbley herself and her husband are very clearly responsible for what happened. There's just the whole thing is a mess. So I'm going to kind of go back and recap some of the days. This comes from Fox 2 Detroit. For those of you that don't know, this trial and this whole unfortunate event took place right outside the Detroit area. And has obviously captivated the attention of the local community, if not even the rest of the country. So, all right. Arguments in Jennifer Crumbley trial reached their conclusion Friday after closing arguments. Pontiac, Michigan. The final day of Jennifer Crumbley's trial was Friday today, where the prosecution cross-examined the defendant, and after that, closing arguments were made to the jury. where both the prosecutor, Karen McDonald, and defense attorney Shannon Smith made their case. The day was full of impassioned speeches following a dramatic week of testimony from witnesses, and you can read about the day's biggest most below, which we will go into. But yesterday, Jennifer Crumbley took the stand to kick off the defense's case to defend herself. Again, a defendant taking the stand on their own behalf, not necessarily always recommended by those who are currently incarcerated. It is something that is frowned upon in a lot of circles when you take your own defense. But hey, here we are. So Jennifer Crumbley took the stand on Thursday, kicking off the defense's case on day 6 of her trial for 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter from the Oxford High School shooting. After testifying about the months, days, and moments leading up to the Oxford school mass casualty event, she was asked if she would do anything differently as a parent, and Crumbley said no. But she told the court, quote, "I wish he would have killed us instead." Now, for me, in hearing just that alone, it feels like a little bit, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, or what you think. But again, this is a democracy. You guys get to weigh in on the comments. And again, wherever you may be and however you may be listening, thank you for making me a part of your day. This is the show, of course, where I offer my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, and albeit with a slight sense of humor. So when I believe that Jennifer Crumbley says that she wishes that he would have killed us, I think she just really feels sorry for herself. I don't think she's feeling sorry for the victims of the situation. I don't think she feels sorry for her son. I think she feels sorry for herself and her husband, that they don't get to continue the life that they were leading and being negligent parents at best. Negligent parents. That is my opinion on this. As I weigh in, we'll get into a little bit of this. So it says the shooter wanted help, but said, my parents won't listen. Lieutenant Timothy Willis, the officer in charge of the shooting investigation, testified about what was found in the shooter's backpack, including a troubling journal, entries from the shooter about his and entries from the shooter about his mental state, entries in the journal. He became emotional throughout his testimony, tearing up several times when asked to review video of the shooting and its aftermath. After the mass casualty event, the shooter's backpack was found inside a bathroom. Inside that backpack were about 90 loose pieces of paper and school assignments, along with a journal. Quote, over 50 pieces of paper had drawings of firearms on them, Willis said. The journal was full of writings about school shootings and included several disturbing statements about his mental state at the time. I have zero help for my mental problems, and it's causing me to shoot up the effing school, unquote. Quote, I want to help my parents. I want help, but my parents won't listen to me and I can't get help, unquote. My parents won't listen to me about help or a therapist. And I want to shoot up the effing school so badly, so I am going to buy a 9mm pistol. So this is obviously a kid who was crying for help the entire time. I'm going to see if I can play a video here after a word from Rogue Fitness. But obviously, this kid was crying for help for months and months, if not years, with his parents. And they just declined to get him any help. It seemed like it was too much of a burden. And we learned about Jennifer Crumbley's behavior leading up. So I'm going to play this video here from, maybe not. Nope. Okay. And they are just not cooperating here. Okay. This is the journal that they were presenting. And let's see here. Sorry, guys, trying to get this work.
Just talked about, we said over 50 with different pictures of weapons. There's no evidence that was ever turned into the school, is that correct?
Yes, I have no evidence of that.
Okay. And you've had the opportunity to read the entire journal?
I have
Okay. Out of that notebook, how many pieces of paper have actual writing?
22.
And does one of those 22 pages include just a drawing and a quote from a book?
Yes.
Okay. Now, out of the remaining 21, how many reference the school shooting?
Every single one.
So there are some that have been admitted, some portions of that. I'm going to go through those with you.
This is just
So
heartbreaking.
you're aware. We've
This is
numbered
just
them,
heartbreaking.
Keep them straight for you as well as the jury. Number one is the drawing, page number 1. Page 22 would be the back cover of that journal. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. And the back cover of the journal has actual writing on it as well.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. This is 401.
Yeah.
This is Detective Willis that is testifying.
I understand. 401.
They're all 401.
Oh,
I want help, but my parents don't listen.
You said individually, so I got confused.
Okay. So this has been admitted as page 401. Sir, in reading the journal, were there passages in there indicative of a request for mental health help?
Yes.
Can you read what's been identified here as page 6 of that journal?
Yes. The shooter writes, I have zero help, as you can see on the whole, for my mental problems, and it's causing me to shoot up the fucking school.
We'll move on to page 5. Could you read this passage, please?
In this one, the shooter writes, I want help, but my parents don't listen to me, and I can't get any help.
Well, this is page 19. Can you read that?
Yes. Shooter writes, my parents won't listen to me about help or therapist.
Sir, in that journal, were there entries about the shooter's desire to obtain a 9mm handgun?
Yes.
This is also Exhibit 401, page 22. Could you read those quotes, please?
Yes. The shooter writes, I want to shoot up the fucking school so badly. Soon, I'm going to buy a 9mm pistol.
Sir, were there any passages regarding the shooter's plan for the actual shooting?
Yes, there were.
Okay. Here's page 3, also Exhibit 401. Could you read that, please?
Yes. Shooter writes, I'm about to shoot up the school and spend the rest of my life in prison.
Were there any journal entries about the shooter's access to the 9mm handgun?
There were.
This is also Exhibit 401, also page 3. Could you read that, please?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
The shooter writes, first off, I got my gun. It's a SP 2022 Sig Sauer 9mm. Second, the shooting is tomorrow. I have access to the gun and the ammo. I am fully committed to this now. So yeah, I'm going to prison for life, and many people have about 1 day left to live.
Thank you, sir.
That's absolutely heartbreaking. It's absolutely horrific and heartbreaking that is what this child wrote in his diary, and the parents decided to ignore all of this. And this poor kid was just let down by everyone who was supposed to protect him in his life. And he is very, very accurately, he's very right. He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. He was 15 years old when this happened. He's now 17 years old. The brain isn't developed, the whole
So you
thing,
sent
and
officers
just
to
the fact
that location, 112 East in Oxford?
that the fact that this happened is just, I understand why the parents were charged, why they're putting them on trial, and why people in this community have have every right to be angry. Willis also testified about the search for the Crumbley parents after his team learned of the charges being announced by the prosecutor. Prosecutors showed the jury a receipt of a purchase of a track phone as well as a hotel stay. Track phone, for those of you who don't know, are burner phones. You can buy them at Walmart. They're throwaways. Every nefarious person or who's ever done anything knows about track phones. I know about track phones because I used to sell track phones back when I knew that, long before I knew that they were going to be used for anything nefarious. But it was like, hey, it's a prepaid phone because you couldn't get cellular service, because way back in the day, cell phones and wireless service was super expensive. It was like, like 90 cents a minute. It was something absolutely absurd. I remember having like a $2,000 phone bill one time, $1,300 phone bill with AirTouch cellular. Phones were wild, so getting a prepaid phone was always a great idea. So I used to sell those way back in my 20s, which was just only a couple of years ago. But yeah. So they purchased a track phone as well as a hotel stay. The investigation later revealed that they stayed at an extended stay America suite in Auburn Hills, which is outside Detroit. They checked in on December 1st and checked out on December 3rd, the day the charges were announced. A vehicle owned by them was later found in the parking lot of the hotel. Evidence Willis reviewed at trial shows the Crumbleys took out $3,000 from their son's bank account on the day of the shooting, and only 99 cents was left. So they went and pillaged his bank account right after he committed this mass casualty event at the high school. There were also multiple cash withdrawals for thousands of dollars by the Crumbley parents. They pulled out $2,000 from banks twice on December 2nd. They later took out $4,000 on December 3rd, the day they were charged with involuntary manslaughter, according to bank records shown to the jury. Now, the defense tries to, quote, open the drawer on more journal entries, and the judge says no. Judge Cheryl Matthews had previously ruled that most of the shooter's journal entries are inadmissible, but defense attorney Shannon Smith tried Thursday to get more of the journal entries admitted in her cross-examination of Willis. It's the third time this week that Smith tried to readmit evidence that had once previously been ruled inadmissible. Quote, I am trying to very much protect any potential public record, and I do not want to delve into this journal. I think that would do nothing more than hurt Mrs. Crumbley severely. It's highly prejudicial, Matthews ruled. But yet her own defense attorney, and I think a lot of people have been questioning whether her defense attorney, Shannon Smith, was indeed a competent attorney or not. So I would imagine that if she does get convicted of this involuntary manslaughter, that maybe one of her causes for appeal could be, if they do decide to do that, if she does go down that road, is that she was represented by inept counsel. Could be a possibility. Again, I am not a lawyer. I am not a psychologist. I do not work in law enforcement. I am just a guy who's been through a lot of shit, if you see the intro of the video. But these types of things, bring that up. Like, are they opening the door for that? Could she be opening the door for that? And does Judge Matthews think that maybe perhaps her counsel that she had hired to defend her might not be as competent or as good at their job as they should be when defending her? Oh, excuse me. Now, when she took the stand, she said, quote, she felt that her son needed some mental help.
Every weekday.
We will get into that, but in a second. After, of course, we get through this. What is this? Raven Simone? Sherry? I don't know who Sherry is. Okay. So, bringing back, this is Jennifer Crumbley on the witness stand.
To say that, did you have additional conversations with James about horses and or Ethan?
Yeah.
How often would you and James talk about or talk to Ethan?
Absolutely, Suzanne.
We'll talk to him every day. Talk about him probably every day too.
Okay. What kind of, did Ethan have scheduling things you had to work out?
Yeah, he had bowling practices throughout the week, bowling matches, and he worked part-time at a diner. So we had to work out transportation and scheduling with that.
In terms of your relationship with your son, how did you think your relationship was?
I thought we were pretty close. We would talk. We did a lot of things together. I trusted him, and I felt like I had an open door and he can come to me about anything. I mean, I felt as a family the three of us were really close.
Okay, you're getting.
I agree,
a lot-
Black Widow.
No, it's okay. You're getting a lot of redness here. Is that normal?
Yes, because I'm talking in front of people and my nerves act up. So I get splotchy and I might break out in hives, and I apologize.
Okay, but you are okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So with regard to your son, did you ever go through his text messages, go through his bedroom? What kind of a parent were you in terms of going through those things?
I did not go through his text messages. I didn't have a reason to. His bedroom, I would go through when I clean it. I come across things, I look through it to see if there was something needed to keep or throw away. But I never went through his text messages.
What about, you did say you went through his grades.
Correct.
Did you end up having discipline issues with him?
A couple of times we did, yes.
What kind of things would those be over?
Missing assignments in his grades.
Okay. Well, any
man.
other things that were discipline issues?
No.
She just doesn't look like she gives a shit. I'm sorry to say it. She just doesn't look like she gives a shit. She just seems like a very absentee parent. She just doesn't seem to care. It's really, really sad. You know, oh yeah, I didn't go. What parent doesn't go through their kids' tech? I mean, look, I don't have a child. I have a fur child, which you guys heard talking earlier. You know, I understand. With these things nowadays, I don't know how anyone cannot be a completely paranoid parent because of the power that a child has in their hand. But I don't know how. I don't know how they could have. Sorry, guys. I mean to yawn. I just got. I did a pretty long workout today, so I think I'm just a little exhausted. I don't understand how anyone, a parent, couldn't be that concerned and in their lives of this child. I really don't. I think it's a massive oversight. Not to mention, Cat loves cat skills, as you accurately point out, that they did buy him the firearm, that it was a Christmas present, and he talks about that.
At school or at home?
No.
Was there ever a time where you took away your son's phone?
Yes.
Okay, do you recall when that was?
I don't remember exactly. I just know he got really angry about it. But we took him away a couple of times. We've taken his video games away.
Why did you do that?
Missing assignments in his grades.
Okay, so same stuff.
Same stuff.
Okay. We're going to talk about some of the text messages, and you would agree the prosecution admitted some text messages about one of those times when you took away his phone.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll get there. Okay. I want to talk about mental health. Did you ever believe that your son needed mental health treatment, therapy, counseling, anything?
No, I mean, there's a couple of times where Ethan had expressed anxiety over taking tests, anxiety about what he was going to do after high school, whether it was college, military. So he expressed those concerns to me, but not to a level where I felt he needed to go see a psychiatrist or a mental health professional right away. No.
Did you ever deny him or say, no, I'm not going to take you to a mental health professional? Did he ever ask you?
No, I mean, one time when he was talking about what he wanted to do for his future, I don't know, he was feeling really down about it and stressed. My husband did call his school counselor to try to talk to him because they do a lot of future academic planning with the tech school.
Was that a mental health issue?
No, it was more or less addressing what was upsetting my son at that time.
Okay, and what was upsetting him?
The fact that he didn't know what he wanted to do. His grades weren't that great, so he was stressed out about getting into college. he was just having a hard time with his future goals.
I mean, I just can't even. I don't know what to think. And it's again,
These are the
as you
things that
guys
matter.
mentioned,
Humility.
it is for some people that might be a high level of involvement. Maybe they thought that was a high level of involvement for them. Again, I'm not here to pontificate on how someone should raise their child, but it does appear that she really that she really messed up and that she wasn't paying attention to the signs. Here's another clip of her.
Back up. Were there any activities that you and Ethan enjoyed doing together?
Yes. I joined the ski patrol because the family can ski free, and also to help people out. So I got him into skiing at the age of 7, and he would come out with me on my patrol shifts and come skiing with me. So we were in that together.
What about horses? Did he ever go out to the barn with you?
He did, but he didn't really like horses. The one horse I had was kind of aggressive, so it intimidated him. That kind of turned him off from going to the barn.
Her and
It's
her
kind of boring
horses.
if you're not the person with the horse. There's a lot of standing around and a lot of nothing.
Okay. So would you spend time together with him at home?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell the jury what kinds of things you guys did together or as a family.
Now that's interesting stuff to Banana. Jennifer's attorney was also the attorney for Larry Nassar and an MSU law grad, which, by the way, Michigan State is a very excellent school. I have 2 friends that went there. I have actually many friends that went to Michigan State University, even though I'm from Ohio. But one of them being Chris Hansen, host of To Catch a Predator, Michigan State grad. So yeah, this is interesting. Maybe she just is having a bad day, but also to represent Larry Nassar, who obviously we know is a horrific, evil human being, who will be spending the next 137 years incarcerated. Just absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. But that's interesting to know. Thank you for sharing
We
that.
did a lot of board games. We also had the
Did a lot of board
virtual
games.
reality set for the PS4. So we did a lot of the Beat Saber. You can probably Google
I
that.
don't even know what you're talking about.
It's like you're holding lightsabers and has music, and you have to like hit the beats, but it's all in 3D. So it's a virtual reality headset.
Okay. So you would do that with him?
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
We had a pool. We liked swimming together. Really just normal stuff.
Okay. Did you do holiday things?
We did.
Give us some examples.
So every year around Thanksgiving, I always cook Thanksgiving dinner. The day after, we would go cut our Christmas tree down. And then we would decorate that weekend. We watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Halloween, we grew our own pumpkins. So we always carved our own pumpkins and had a whole bunch put around the house.
It sounds like she understands that there are things and activities that she could have done with her son. And it sounds like she is aware of how to be a good parent. And it sounds like she is aware on how to be involved in her child's life. It just seems like there is a disconnect that she, oftentimes, and again, this is one of the reasons why, I feel like as someone who didn't have an ideal parent. Obviously, my mother was a very wonderful human and raised me right, but my father, not exactly the best shining example of a good father. You kind of got to look for your role models, right? But in a lot of ways too, it sounds like that she understands, but she was unwilling to like really go through the motions. Like she's making it sound like, oh, we did this, but there's no joy. There's no like, oh, we had this wonderful life and this was just a situation that went wrong. I mean, she's I don't find her credible in the slightest bit. I find her accountable, but not credible.
It's normal family stuff.
Did you have an interest in like home improvement kind of stuff?
Yeah. Our house was an auction house. So basically it was wrapped in blue tarp when we bought it. at auction. So we've been trying to improve the house since 2015. So we new roof,
It was wrapped in blue.
exterior, and then I've been working on exterior and interior ever since.
Were there things that your son was interested in outside of video games? Was there anything academic that he was interested in?
He really liked history. He was a big history buff. We can play Trivial Pursuit, and he would get me in history every single time. But that was probably his only favorite subject. The rest he could do without.
How did he do in school?
He did good if he applied himself. His problem was he didn't try as hard as I think he could. So he had up and down grades. I would say it's about average.
Okay, and when you say about average, was that something that you talked to him about? Was that something you monitored? Tell the jury about that.
Yeah, you heard about the Power School app during this trial. So I had it on my phone, and I was on it multiple times a day. And his grades will fluctuate based on what assignments the teachers turned in on the Power School app. Our biggest struggle with him were missing assignments. That was the one thing we battled all the time.
Why was that a hot button issue for you?
Because there's no reason why he should have missing assignments. He had a homeroom class and get assignments done in.
Okay. There were, you talked about your job. What were the average hours you worked a week?
I usually I got to the office between 7 and 8 in the morning and leave anywhere between 4 and 6.
And we've heard lots of evidence already. It was family friendly. Yeah. Were you able to go and leave and go as you needed to?
Pretty much. Yep.
So, wow. You guys also like how I flipped it, because I was just looking here and I'm looking at the screen, but it looks like I'm looking this way. So I kind of find that. Oh man, okay, now we're on autoplay. So now I can look over there and I'm looking the same way. So now you'll see when I look at the comments. I just figured this out. Only took me 8 months to figure that out, guys. Oy vey. If everything was an oy vey, it is that. Illegally Read, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yes, Black Widow or National Lampoons is our generation, but it is wildly popular with the kids. Still. It is wildly popular with the kids. Absolutely. I mean, this whole thing is just is very sad. So back to what else she said. She testified that her son never asked for a therapist for help for his mental health, despite text messages from him to his friend saying he wanted help for his mental crisis. She said her son sometimes had anxiety about his future or about taking a test in school, but she didn't witness any real behavior or disciplinary problems. She said one time she called a counselor at the school to go through some future planning. It was more addressing what was upsetting my son at the time. The fact that he didn't know what he wanted to do, his grades weren't that great. So he was stressed out about getting into college. He was just having a hard time with his future goals, she testified. While information between school officials was being passed around the shooter's behavior in class and for some disturbing answers he'd given on assignments, Jennifer Crumbley testified that she was never contacted about the issues. I'd be definitely concerned, she said. But when asked about messages from her son saying he was hearing and seeing things while home alone, she said she wasn't concerned. He was just messing with us, unquote. Crumbley dismissed messages from her son about demons, saying he had always thought their house was haunted. She testified that she didn't know about her son and James Crumbley's visit to the gun store until after it happened. She said she didn't deal with guns most of the time and that she let her husband handle them. He was responsible for storing firearms in the house. Crumbley also gave her version of what happened in the 11-minute meeting she and James Crumbley had with their son and a school counselor on the morning of December 30th, 2021, which was the day of the mass casualty event at Oxford High School, hours before he opened fire. So again, where does she take accountability or responsibility? And by the way, there is video of her at a gun range with her son, which they've shown in court. So she did know about firearms. She did have contact with him with firearms. So it was something that was obviously a big part of their family, which, by the way, for most of the people that live outside of California, outside of Los Angeles, really, and very liberal areas, guns are a big part of a household. I grew up in Ohio. We go hunting. I did not go hunting, but I first learned to use a firearm when I was like 13 years old, and how to handle one and proper safety training and things. And I just remember just turning and saying, "What do I do with it?" It's holding it. I didn't have my finger on the trigger, I don't think. But and my stepfather going, or adopted father going, George going, "What are you doing? Stop!" My brother, it was, they still tease me about it to this day. Because when I was adopted, I learned about firearms. We were not hunters or anything, but it's part of an education, which I think you should, in my opinion, learn to respect these types of things. And that is the consensus in the Midwest. So, it's not unnatural to have firearms in the house. It is, however, unnatural to not have them locked up. Like there was never open. I lived in a household. I never had access to any of that. They were always kept in a safe. There was, and if I did know, I didn't know where they were at. And then there was, for them to not take responsibility to secure the weapon, as they had testified when the police went to the house after the mass casualty event, they found the gun safe open and the combination was 000. Not a hard combination to figure out, especially when you're somewhat of a knowledgeable teenager, right? Lucy says, Sharita, okay, you talked me into a cocktail. Just a teeny one. Is somebody hungover in the gallery? My son used a pew since he was 5. He did not have access to them other than supervised. Yes, the pew. Is that what we should say? The pew. Even if he was kidding him, see text, that's still alarming. As a parent, I would question my son and take him to therapy. Absolutely. And the fact that they didn't. So she said, quote, he told us that he didn't feel my son was a risk and actually gave him the option if he wanted to stay at school or go home. My son wanted to stay at school. So this is her laying it back on the counselor, saying that it's the counselor's fault that he stayed at school, not the parents actively knowing about this, because as it was proven on that morning, she was texting with her lover about rendezvousing an apartment in a parking lot of Costco, I believe. He said being around peers usually helps. So we all agreed to that. My son gets very stressed out and he does virtual school. So we agreed that it might stress him out more to do his school remotely the rest of the day. But there was never a time where I would refuse to take him home. I could easily, if he wanted to go, taken him with me. I had no issues with that. Well, why didn't you? Protein drink here. Yuck. Hey, we like protein drinks. I'm in Southern California. It's too early for alcohol, or is it? Terry Jones. It is 3:38. It is a Friday. The weekend is probably officially upon us. As someone who quit drinking over 3 years ago, I will not be joining you in that. On a side note, have you guys looked at all of the literature that has come out about alcohol and what ethanol does to your body, which is what alcoholic beverages break down to in our body? Trust me, I spent a long time experimenting with the side effects of alcohol and ethanol in my system, but no more. Jennifer Crumbley said the counselor gave him a stack of papers with the names of counselors on them. She said she gave them to her husband and started calling that afternoon after he finished his DoorDash deliveries. She said she doesn't recall abruptly ending the meeting like the counselor does, only that the meeting ended naturally and she went back to work. Crumbley later recalled the moments after hearing that there was an active shooter and joining a caravan of law enforcement heading to the school before getting a call from James Crumbley. Quote, at that point, my mind went to, we can handle injuries. I went into kind of like, quote, go now. What do we have to do? My son's arrested. I do not think there would be any fatalities. I did not think there would be any fatalities. I didn't think there would be any injuries. I didn't think of anything, but I just went into that mode like we can handle it. We can handle injuries and we can figure this out and go from there. Now, as an experienced handler of a firearm, as you've shown in videos, that it's not just injuries, that these are weapons which can create mass casualty events. And why would anyone think otherwise? So the fact that but maybe she was perhaps rationalizing in her head. And honestly, I'm thinking that maybe she was rationalizing in her head because she realized that she screwed up and not being there for her son. On December 3rd, the day Jennifer and James Crumbley were charged, their failure to appear at an afternoon arraignment sparked a massive manhunt. Jennifer testified that after learning they were charged, they consulted with their attorney, defense attorney Shannon Smith, and planned to turn themselves in the next day. I was not aware we could go to court that afternoon. I was just waiting on direction from you, she told her attorney in court. Jennifer said she and James Crumbley checked out of the extended stay hotel where they were staying, then went to the art studio where they would later be arrested. Now, I remember all of this, them being arrested in an art studio. I remember that. They each took 4 Xanax before going to sleep sometime around 11 p.m. Police found and detained them a couple of hours later. 4 Xanax? I will sometimes take them when I get on an airplane, and I take half of the smallest dose of one, maybe even a quarter, and I'm 4. That's quite excessive. That's excessive. 4. Come on. Blackwood, or as an art teacher, I have had occasions where counseling and parental involvement was required. The school felt it was serious enough for Ethan to be removed for care, and they didn't take him for care. Absolutely, and that's interesting. And I remember going to high school, and I was an art student. I went to art school. Well, I did not go to art high school, but the arts were a very big part of my life growing up, and so I remember kids making drawings, things of that were concerning to staff. And I remember kids being removed or parents being called in because of certain things. So yes, and art is definitely a particular field of study in high school and grade school, where kids can freely obviously express what they want to express, and therefore can come under a lot of scrutiny, and the teachers can use their discretion to bring in parental units or the school counselor. And so I commend you for that, because obviously, yeah, you want to make sure the kids are going. Like, why are we not safeguarding our children to begin with? But I can't even get into that. I'm not a parent, but I think about the system as a whole, and those are the things that keep me up at night. They were not very big gun enthusiasts. Sorry. We were not very big enthusiasts, but we all learned gun safety at 10. Got it. I thought you were saying they were not. He did stuff with Kenny Chesney too. Love that you're shaking your head to all of that. Kenny Chesney. Who? Kenny Chesney. I think he did a version with Alan Jackson. Oh, you guys are talking about country music. In a country song, I believe Jimmy Buffett with Alan Jackson is 5 o'clock somewhere. Oh, yes. 5 o'clock somewhere. Yes. R.I.P. Jimmy Buffett. A life well lived, though. Yes, tonight. What are you bathing your agent, sentient, sick, disease cells in? Do you have a choice to be the best version of you can be? I don't know, Seascape. Don't know. Xanax spelling police here. Yes, it's Xanax. Yes. That's how it is. That's how it's spelled. Yes. RL froze. XANAX. Yes. Proceed with caution. 4 Xanax. I'm surprised the police even woke them. I'm surprised the police were even able to wake them up. Jennifer said she and James Crumbley. Okay, so her attorney asked if she would do anything differently as a parent, to which Crumbley said no, but she told the court, I wish he would have killed us instead. So that brings me, and is this her saying, I wish he would have taken our lives instead? Let's see if she says that. I would like to hear this because that to me sounds like an excuse and a cop out. And she's trying to martyr herself. I wish we would have lost our lives too. And then that's a cop out. Let's see.
On the court that afternoon. I was just waiting on direction from you to what we're going to do the following day and turning ourselves in.
All right. So the prosecution showed lots of pictures of the art studio. We agree. That's what it looks like, right?
Right.
Okay. Did you guys sleep on that mattress that night?
Yeah, we did. It was actually in the hallway, a common hallway the business shared, and we pulled it into the art studio and slept on it that night.
Okay. Did you, the prosecution showed receipts and supplies that were bought, things like that. Who went to the store and did that?
My friend went to the store.
I
we
agree,
gave him a
Steph
list,
Banana.
and he picked up things for us.
Okay. Why didn't you go to the police department? This is so distracting. I'm having a really hard time. I can move maybe and ask. Okay. So who bought those supplies?
Good point, Trita Hall.
My friend did.
Okay. Why didn't you and James just go on your own to the police department?
She does appear to be a little
and turn
medicated.
yourselves in?
Because we didn't feel it'd be safe.
Okay. Why is that?
Just the fact that the entire community and Michigan knew that we were expected to turn ourselves in at the police department, so they would know where to go.
Okay. And so that night, what did you and James sleep there?
We did.
What time did you go to bed? What happened? Just really quickly.
I want to say it was after 11, maybe around 11 o'clock when we finally went to bed. We both, I'm prescribed Xanax for anxiety, and we each took 4 because we knew we were going to turn ourselves in the next day, and we hadn't slept in 4 days, and we just wanted to sleep.
Okay. So you each took 4.
We did.
Okay. And so the next thing,
4.
The next piece of evidence we saw was them
4. I'm sorry. 4 Xanax. I get it. I get it. You must be able to build up a tolerance. By the way, I will say something. I usually take melatonin. It's a whole other topic. I usually take melatonin to fall asleep every night. I have fallen asleep the last 2 nights. I have done 2 things. I've eliminated screens and no noise or whatever. And I did not take melatonin, and I had some of the best sleep I've had in months. I didn't take anything, and I could not believe it. Yes, Cat Loves Catskills says 4. And I do love melatonin, but I cannot believe that I slept soundly and had a wonderful sleep with no melatonin. Anyways, back to her. Sorry.
coming into that art studio. Do you recall that?
I recall my husband screaming, and there was people with guns again in our face, officers.
What were you doing prior to hearing your husband screaming?
We were sleeping.
Okay. Were you aware there was anything going on?
No, it was not.
You
You
think
saw the video, so we don't need to go through all of that.
after 4 Xanax?
And the prosecution admitted, I'm going to put it up on the screen, People's Exhibit 150, and I just want to verify
It's all good, Jennifer Lewis
with
Harris.
you. I'm sorry,
Anytime's a
can you
good time for Mover Nation.
Okay, do you see it on your screen?
I do.
There's
Okay,
no
what is
Caleb's
that?
Catskills.
That's an alarm I set for the next morning,
For Saturday
for
morning?
Saturday morning, correct?
Okay, do you recall why you set it for 6:30, 6:40? Is there 2 alarms or 1?
Yeah, there's 2.
Okay, why did you set those alarms?
because we were going to wake up and drive to the Novi courthouse and meet you there by 8:30.
Okay, and what was your plan there? What was going to be your plan when you got to Novi?
We were going to be arraigned.
Interesting. She set 2 alarms. Well, I kind of do that myself, to be honest with you. I can't fault her on that. Just in case the first alarm doesn't work, the second one will. On December 3rd. Okay. Hold on. This just died. Okay. So that is part of Jennifer Crumbley's testimony. I don't really need to see too much more of this because, to be honest with you, I mean, my mind is already made up. I just think that she just shouldn't have been a parent. Some parents just should not be parents, and it's unfortunate. And again, somebody had mentioned in the comments much earlier that these are the types of conversations that we should be having because this is the consequences of violence. This is what this causes. And there are so many people who are affected by the poor decisions of others. You look at, even situations where people, we were making jokes about, taking Xanax and alcohol and et cetera, situations where people get behind the wheel of a car and they take someone's life and because they're intoxicated and don't even realize it. I've seen those videos before where people wake up in the hospital and said, I did what and what happened? And it's just absolutely horrific. Thank you so much, Gen X Granny, and thank you so much, Black Widower, for gifting 5 memberships. That's absolutely wild. If you have not been able to get a membership, snag one of those memberships, guys. Please join Mover Nation. Please. You can Gen X Granny knows there's a way to click and you can just accept the free membership. Negligent parent, sorry if I misspelled. No worries. And CBD, yes, we love CBD here as well. Wendy, that was Black Widower. Very, very sweet of you. And the Ollie Chillax. Yes, I have taken Ollie Chillax as well. Love this since my budge is so strict with care of my mom who is 94. Yes, thank you, RL Froze. Black Widower, thank you. It's a societal failure. Be nosy, interfere if you see neglected kids. Tell a mandated reporter. Yes, and that is coming from an art teacher in school. I think we all have to take responsibility and be a community, right? That rallies around children, because this isn't going to get any better. So, I think that Mem Gift, thank you. Click here to opt in for gifted memberships on this channel. There we go. You click there and you can do that. For my education, what is a mandated reporter? What is a mandated reporter, Black Widower? Yes, he is, I believe, their only child, Joanne Taylor. And this young man is going to serve the rest of his life incarcerated. So, today, the closing arguments. By the way, it is beautiful and sunny here, Mover Nation, but guess what? We have 2 atmospheric rivers barreling towards Southern California, and the weather is going to be miserable for the next 8 days. I am not a fan. For those of you that don't know, I am not a fan of rain or cold weather. That's why I live in Southern California, and we are going to have plenty of both. It is going to get down to the 40s, and it is going to be raining. And it is going to be, we are supposed to get 10 inches within, I think, 12 hours or something insane. We had these atmospheric rivers last year around this time, and now we're having more. I am over it. We just had one the other day, yesterday. It finished up, and then now it's sunny, and today was sunny and beautiful. Tomorrow is going to be cloudy, and then crappy on Sunday. We have a live on Sunday at 3 p.m. as well, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. It will be crappy. Parents like Jen T tend to push back on mandated reporters full of excuses. That's good to know, Suzanne Cleveland. Okay, so back to sort of the timeline of events today of the actual last day of the trial. We'll kind of go over it. This is when they grilled her about the gun. But we'll get into all this. So this morning, Jennifer Crumbley returned to court. Judge called a recess. The prosecution is interested in questioning Jennifer Crumbley about whether she had plans to flee from law enforcement after charges were announced. It's already on record that the Crumbley parents were aware that they were going to be charged. Judge returns and will review a question of privilege. The judge, Cheryl Matthews, said waiving the defendant's privilege would set a dangerous precedent, but also said the prosecution's interest is very limited to 23 text messages between the attorney and her defendant. Matthews said she would need to review the messages before allowing the prosecution to talk about them. Those questions would be, quote, limited to the issue of flight and not anything else, because she was communicating with her attorney on that day that they were arrested, which was December 3rd, 2021, or actually, I guess it would have been technically December 4th because it was overnight. They took the Xanax at 11 p.m. and then they woke up a few hours later. So that would be after midnight, December 4th, when they were arrested in the hiding out in the art gallery, which some people say that they were fleeing and they went there. Some people were saying they were fleeing to get away from the mob that was probably outside their house and all of that, which could be true. I don't really know. I wasn't there. Again, a lot of this is speculation. A lot of it, we hear in court, but none of us were there. And no one really knows what went on except for the people that were in the case themselves that were involved. We just sort of speculate. And I always want to keep that, maybe we be mindful of that as we speculate, because much of this, can get out of control with conjecture and things of that nature. But still, based upon the testimony, based upon the events that were presented in court, I don't see how she doesn't go to prison. And it's horrible because all of it could have been avoided. All of it could have been avoided. Clearly, that's what this shows, because it has impacted her son's life, their lives, 4 families who lost loved ones, 7 other people who were injured severely because of this incident, and a community and a school and countless children who were traumatized because of this. All because these parents didn't want to do their jobs or didn't want to be the parents that they should have been. It's very, very frustrating. I can see that many of the community members being angry, law enforcement being angry, people in the gallery of the front being angry with this behavior is terrible, reprehensible. This morning, cross-examination of Jennifer Crumbley begins. Assistant prosecutor Mark Keese is cross-examining Jennifer Crumbley, who answered questions from her attorney on Thursday. He said his first round of questions would be about her vigilance as a parent. The first questions that Keese is asking Crumbley about her affairs and about the time and energy and focus that she spent on arranging the meetups with her lover, who was a former fireman. And she said it, quote, didn't take too much time to do it. His next questions, he asked her about the purchase of the firearm, asking if she described it as a gift. She asked him for him to define that, and he brought up her Instagram post about her son's new Christmas gift. She described it as something only to be used at the shooting range. She also testified that she never once took him to therapy and was never told about her son's ideations of self-harm. The math assignment was the first exhibit shown to Jennifer Crumbley, who testified that she was angry when she saw the modified drawing and she saw the original and was concerning. She testified that she thought the man on the assignment was a poor drawing of Batman. Prosecution questions shooters' friendships and hobbies. This is her cross-examination. She testified yesterday. We played some of that testimony. This is her testimony today. The shooter's friend had been driven to Wisconsin the day before the shooter was supposed to hang out with him. Jennifer Crumbley testified that she and her husband still went on to 2 parties that Halloween without their son. The shooter was left at home. The prosecution is also prying into how involved he was with his hobbies, like bowling and designing video games. Ethan Crumbley did have a fascination with weapons, and the prosecution asked if Jennifer was aware of the conversations between him and his dad about getting a firearm. She said that she wasn't part of those conversations and didn't know when they would go and buy the firearm. She said it was James's responsibility, which is her husband. More responsibility. The prosecutor asked her, it's pretty clear that you don't trust James with much. And she citing text messages between the two and her disposition towards her husband. She said, but this is the person you entrusted with a deadly weapon. Prosecution played recorded phone calls between Jennifer Crumbley and her dad. In one, they're asking about a GoFundMe account for her horses, and in another, she's asking about calories in a bologna sandwich. Fun fact, don't eat a bologna sandwich. They're not good for you. The prosecution was asking about Jennifer Crumbley talking about being in a, quote, planning mode before she was arrested. In another phone call played after she was taken into custody, she was asking her dad for help filing her taxes, and at one point about a child tax credit. The prosecution asked about text messages her attorney and the Crumbleys. Between her and her attorney, the night the Crumbleys were arrested, they included messages from Jennifer Crumbley's phone that said, quote, we might have been found. Jennifer testified that James Crumbley was using her phone during those messages, and she was using a third phone, probably the track phone, the burner that they purchased. She testified that she was absolutely sure she was asleep by the time police busted into the art studio. And then the jury was dismissed. McDonald went through, so the closing arguments began at 1:10 today. Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald gave the state's closing argument. She began by stating the duty of her job and the duty of the jurors to remind them. And she told, she said that she presented evidence that she believes reveals Jennifer Crumbley is guilty. Of course, she believes that the state had done that. She posed the task at hand for the jury is a job of considering the two theories. One is that the defendant was grossly negligent in the performance of a lawful act, or the defendant was grossly negligent while failing to perform a legal duty. Involuntary manslaughter theories and elements, and they're broken down as such: gross negligence in performance of a lawful act. One, the defendant caused death, and two, in doing the act that caused death, defendant acted in a grossly negligent manner. Now, gross negligence in failing to perform a legal duty is one, the defendant had a legal duty to the victim. Two, defendant knew of the facts that gave rise to that duty. Three, defendant willfully neglected or refused to perform that duty, and her failure to perform it was grossly negligent to human life. And four, the death of the victim was directly caused by defendant's failure to perform this duty. McDonald then went through the witnesses that testified during the trial, beginning with the school's officials and with Ethan himself, to the individual that sold the firearms to the that interacted with Ethan, and the individual that sold the firearms to the Crumbley family, as well as law enforcement. Quote, we all saw it. We actually saw the last day he was practicing to kill 4 of his classmates, and there was only one person with him, ladies and gentlemen, and her name is Jennifer Crumbley, McDonald told the jury. Jennifer Crumbley didn't engage with her son at all, she said. That meeting ended with, "Are we done here?" Meaning that was the meeting that was between the counselor and herself, and she just ended it, according to the counselor's testimony, is like, "Are we done here?" Because she had no interest in taking her son out of school. McDonald also hammered that Crumbley, in her statement to police after the event, when asked where the gun was that her son had obtained, she said it was hidden. Quote, "You're at the police station. Your son's in the next room. You know the weapon was the weapon used that you just purchased for him. And when you're asked where it was, you say it was hidden." In the minutes and hours after the event, McDonald said Jennifer Crumbley was more concerned about being judged by her boss. The box the firearm was kept in was found in the defendant's bed, and a box that had bullets was empty next to it. She argued that Crumbley's statements don't add up when she described where it was kept, and a cable lock that came with the weapon was also still in its packaging and found in the case. And the cable lock is something that goes through a firearm that you have to cut off and you have to open up and able to even load the weapon. That's what a cable lock is. It's all part of responsible firearm ownership. You use these things, so it can't be used. It's that simple. The prosecution also said that there was a consciousness that the jury is allowed to consider whether James and Jennifer Crumbley had consciousness of guilt. And when they make the ruling, it's not an element of the crime. And she said they didn't have to prove that they fled. The reason we introduced this evidence is the judge, is going to instruct you to use it as a sign of consciousness of guilt. What do you do if you know you've done something wrong? And again, they're using them fleeing and saying they knew they did something wrong, and that's why they fled. Now, the defense has said that the prosecutor's charging was too fast. In regards to the final texts that were sent back and forth to the Crumbleys and their lawyer, Shannon Smith, they said that she was terrified and that they wanted to go through a lawyer. Her lawyer also argued that Shannon Smith also argued that Jennifer Crumbley was indeed a vigilant mom, citing one witness's experience during the event, who testified that they couldn't believe who it was, quote, and the reason she couldn't believe it was him was because it was so unforeseeable. She said, she's the kind of mother who is going to be the friend's mom to chase down why she's having a moody and kind of depressed day. She checks in on her son's grades and on missing assignments. Just because she checked in on missing assignments and grades, and she also claims that their son was a skilled manipulator, again, throwing the kid under the bus because as if the kid doesn't have enough to deal with. The parents, quote, didn't realize that their son was a skilled manipulator, Smith argued. He wasn't sick, she told the jury, and he didn't have a mental illness. Quote, he has no history of hallucinations. He has never shown his parents signs of mental illness. He certainly never showed signs of mental illness wanting to get a firearm. And she claims that the Crumbleys would not have purchased the firearm for him if they believed that he had a mental illness. Instead, they had two guns in the house where nothing happened for months. And they also argue that that prosecution had very little context for any of the evidence that they submitted. I don't know. What do you guys think? It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what they think. It matters what the jury thinks, and it matters what you guys think. I'll ask you, do you think Jennifer Crumbley is responsible for all of this? Do you think that Jennifer Crumbley and her husband, James, enabled their son and did not pay attention to the warning signs of this mass casualty event before it occurred? I don't know. I think this is the case that's going to set a lot of precedent in these types of things. Blackwater says they fled, one, because it wasn't natural to run to their child's aid, and two, they were guilty of purchasing a weapon and neglect. Dominique says it was the son's fault and the father's fault, but not the mother's fault because she's an angel. I think that's sarcasm. Thank you so much, Bonifacio, or Bonifacio. Yes, I am hardworking. Absolutely. They gave him the firearm. They didn't shoot it, but their son did, and they're guilty by association, at least of, I feel, being negligent in this situation. It's all bad. His father was another incompetent father. These two were too busy in their own toxic existence. I don't know what the answer is, but these parents were negligent. Absolutely. And I would agree, Karen Fan. I don't know either. you say, I don't know where I stand. I think this is setting a new tone for all of this. I do absolutely think this sets a new tone for all of this as well. I think you have to be very involved in your children, says Jomar. I think you have to be very involved in your children and be aware. I think Jennifer is a horrible, self-obsessed person who couldn't care less about him. I would agree. I think they were focused on the wrong things and not their child. I would agree. Jay says they had the opportunity to do something about it and didn't. She wanted to go back to work instead of taking her son to get help. I believe she's guilty of that. Yes. And it looks like that they are going to fall into the same perils as their son as well. Mover Nation, we get through another one. If you were on the earlier live, thank you so much for joining that. And thank you all. I want to say a big thank you to all Blackwater for the gifting 5 channel memberships. And thank you for allowing new members of Mover Nation to join. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters and channel members with your paid memberships. You guys, you have no idea how much this helps. Keep the channel, keeps me doing content. If you wouldn't mind, please click the like and subscribe. Please check out more of my content as well. And please consider joining my Patreon, joining as a channel member yourself. All of your support helps make all this content possible. Mover Nation, we get through another one. Thank you all so much. I am back live this Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and I will see you all there. I'm Collier Landry. I'll see you in the next one.
This podcast is made possible by support from listeners just like you. For exclusive content around this podcast, please consider supporting me via Patreon by going to collierlandry.com/support. Please subscribe via Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from, and please leave us a 5-star review. If you want to see video episodes of this podcast, please check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/collierlandry. You can find links to additional resources in the show notes of today's episode. This podcast is a production of Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Collier Landry.